everyone, welcome back to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, dated 12th July 2025. Today again we will be discussing some important topics that has appeared in today's The Hindu and the Indian Express newspapers which are highly relevant for your examination. In the initial two articles, we have included two mains practice questions which will be highly useful for your upcoming mains examination. So in the first topic, we'll try to look into various aspects of One Nation One Elections, its benefits and some possible issues it may pose to the federal structure of India. Then in our second topic, we'll try to look into the status of gender gap across various socio-economic domains and some possible solutions to bridge this gap. After that, in our simplified section, we'll take up 5 articles and we will try to explain them in simplest language possible to enrich your understanding of the newspapers. Additionally, we have also incorporated some prelims pointers which is going to be very crucial for your upcoming prelims and mains examinations. So have a look on them also and stay tuned. So let's start our discussion with the first topic, that is One Nation One Election. The context of this topic is that the One Nation One Election panel, that is a joint committee of Parliament on One Nation One Election bill, they heard the former CJIs, including the Chief Justice of India D.Y. Chandrachud and J.S. Khair, who stated that the simultaneous elections are constitutionally permissible and they may pass the test of basic structure of constitution, which is a judicial innovation from Keswanand Bharati judgment of 1973. But they have raised their apprehensions with regard to the widespread power which are being given to the Election Commission of India to decide the date of the polls, including the date of state polls. And they say that these powers that are being given to the Election Commission of India, that may suffer from the constitutional infirmities. And when we talk about the parliament committees, they are a group of MPs or the panel of member of parliaments who are either elected or appointed by the House, and they may also be nominated by the Speaker or the Chairman of the Rajya Sabha. And they are created for some specific task. What are the major benefits of the parliamentary committees, or what is the main rationality behind creation of the parliamentary committees? That they provides the legislative expertise, they helps in detailed scrutiny, and they also keeps a check on the power of the government, whether it is the legislative power or the executive power. And they draws their power from Article 105 of the Constitution, which talks about the parliamentary privileges, and Article 118, which gives the Parliament authority to make rules or regulation for the procedure and conduct of business of the houses. And these parliamentary committees can be categorized into two subheads. One is the standing committee, which is a kind of permanent committee which is created almost every year. Their members are either elected or appointed or nominated by the House. And then there is this ad hoc committee which have a short-term duration and they are generally created for a specific task. For example, the inquiry committee or the joint parliament committee or the JPC comes under this ad hoc committee. So this joint parliament committee on One Nation One Election bill actually was created for a detailed scrutiny of One Nation One Election bill, so that there can be a widespread stakeholder consultation, and whatever the feedback that will be coming from various stakeholders, that can be incorporated into the bill whenever it is coming on the floor of the House. And this One Nation One Election bill was introduced in Lok Sabha on December 17, and the main aim was to achieve simultaneous elections across states, union territories, as well as for the general elections. And the proposal mainly aims to synchronize the elections in India. What happens as of now, for example, in 2024, there was general elections that happened. So you will be choosing your member of parliament from your constituency, and then there are state legislative assembly elections that happen where you will be choosing your member of legislative assembly who will be representing your constituency in the state legislative assembly. But when this One Nation One Election will see the light of the day, what will happen on the same day? Let's suppose it is 12th July 2025 and this is the day of the polling. On the same day, you will go to the polling booth and there will be two ballots, multiple ballots, in which on the same day you will be choosing your member of parliament who will be representing your constituency in the Lok Sabha, and you will also be choosing your member of legislative assembly, which will be a smaller constituency, and this MLA who will be chosen by you will be representing you in the legislative assembly of the state. So on the same day, you are choosing both your MP and MLA when this One Nation One Election will see the light of the day. So this aims to synchronize the elections of the Lok Sabha as well as the state legislative assemblies of all the states and the union territories. And when it will be implemented, it will allow the voters to cast ballots for both Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies on the same day. And the main objective of this one nation, one election is to cut the election expenditure. As per various estimates, various media reports and the reports from the Election Commission of India, for conduct of 2024 general elections, Election Commission of India spended almost 1.35 lakh crore rupees. Also, the other objectives are that it will help in easing the strain that is created on the administrative resources. The conduct of elections on the ground is done by the state machinery or the district administration, which is headed by the district magistrate or the DM, which you people are aspiring to become. So that district magistrate acts as the district election officer. At that point of time, during the conduct of election, when the day when election is announced, obviously the model code of conduct comes into force. So it is the duty of the district administration as well as the observers which are appointed by the election commission for that particular constituency to ensure that model code of conduct is being followed properly. There is no electoral malpractices which are being involved or which are being used by the people, and they also have to ensure free and fair conduct of elections in their constituency. So at that point of time, the whole priority or the most important thing that needs to be done by the district administration as well as the state administration is free and fair conduct of elections. And that is the reason at that point of time, all other things takes a back seat. So it creates a further pressure on the administrative resources as well as the governance is affected. Why? Because government cannot announce new schemes, new programs cannot be announced, and all the state machineries, all the district machinery is involved in the electoral processes. So whenever we will have frequent elections for the general election, for the assembly elections, and then for the panchayats and the municipal bodies, obviously there will be more disruptions, there will be more expenditure, and there will be more strain on administrative resources. To rationalize all this one nation, one election is being conceptualized. And these two bills which aims to achieve the one nation, one election, they were introduced in Lok Sabha on December 17, and first bill was Constitution 129th Amendment Bill 2024 that seeks to hold the simultaneous elections for the Lok Sabha and the state assemblies. Also, this Union Territories Law Amendment Bill 2024 that proposes to make amendment in the Government of Union Territories Act 1962, Government of National Capital Territory of Delhi Act 1991 and J&K Reorganization Act 2019. And their main aim is to align the electoral cycle of union territories with the Lok Sabha polls. So there are two separate bills. One is for the Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies synchronization, and second is for the general elections and the elections of the union territories. And whenever this bill will come in the parliament, whenever it will be passed by the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, since it is also impacting the federal structure of India, it seeks to amend Article 83, Article 172. Article 172 talks about the life of the state legislative assemblies. So these constitutional amendment bills should also be ratified by at least half of states, since it is impacting the federal structure of India. And this simultaneous elections is not something a new concept in Indian democracy. If you look into the background of elections in India, when the first elections were conducted under the first election commissioner or chief election commissioner Sukumar Sen, at that point of time, the elections for the Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies were conducted together whenever it happened in year 1951-52. And this practice continued for three subsequent general elections in 57, 62 and 67, where both the Lok Sabha elections and state legislative assemblies elections are happening in the same manner, at the same time. But what happened? This cycle was disrupted in year 1968 and 69. Why? Because some state legislative assemblies were dissolved prematurely on account of being the precedent rule being imposed in some states. And then again, the fourth Lok Sabha was also dissolved prematurely in 1970, which led to non-synchronization of the elections of the Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies. So the Ramnath Kovind panel, who is the former president of India, there was a high level committee which was set up to look into various aspects of one nation, one elections, how it can be implemented, and they led it to, they actually consulted all the stakeholders. So in March 24, the high level committee which was chaired by former president Ramnath Kovind on one nation one election, they submitted their report, and the committee recommended that they actually two-step process that will be involved in the simultaneous elections. So this committee engaged in 65 meetings with a range of stakeholders, whether it is the political parties, the state governments, civil society organizations, NGOs, etc. And they also took 191 days of extensive consultation. The committee ensured that they are consulting all the stakeholders, they are taking proper feedback from all the stakeholders. So the first step that they recommended was simultaneous elections to be held for the Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies. And then in step 2, the elections to the municipalities and the panchayats to be held within 100 days of holding the Lok Sabha and the assembly elections. After 100 days of conduction of the Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies, the elections of the panchayats and the municipalities should be done, or that should be conducted. Also, the committee recommended a framework for holding simultaneous elections. First, they said that at the time of next elections for the Lok Sabha, all the state assemblies and the local bodies, they should be dissolved, irrespective of the remaining terms of the state legislative assemblies or the panchayats or the municipalities. And as of now, a legislature is elected for a term of 5 years. Hence, whenever a hung legislature at any point of time would arise, then it will lead to the that will lead to non-synchronization of the next simultaneous elections. What if any government which was elected, let's suppose that was a coalition government, let's suppose in Uttar Pradesh there is a coalition government which came into power when the simultaneous elections was conducted in 2029 or 2034. But what if one of the parties who was in the coalition, they took their support back, and that created a hung assembly, and that is the reason the government lost the majority in Uttar Pradesh state legislative assemblies, and now the elections should be conducted in Uttar Pradesh. In that case, what the committee suggested that fresh elections for a hung legislature should be for the reduced period only. For example, if there was this coalition government which worked for the 2 years or which ran the administration for the 2 years, and if one of the parties took their support back, now the new government that will be formed, that should only have a period of 3 years, or that should only have a tenure of 3 years or 2.5 years, whatever the remaining time period of that state legislative assembly would be, when the first elected government, if they would have continued for the whole period. So rather than giving whole 5 years, they should be only getting the remaining term of the state legislative assembly, so that whenever the next general elections will be happening, there will be again simultaneous elections, that state legislative assemblies will be again elected with the help of that simultaneous election. Also, it will lead to simultaneous elections. What are the advantages of the one nation, one election? So the proponents or the people who are in support of this one nation, one election, they says that it will help in the rationalization of election expenditure. As of now, the 2024 Lok Sabha elections led to a expenditure of almost 1.35 lakh crore. When election machinery is already involved in one election, when we are actually deploying the security forces, when we are deploying the state machineries, state administrations, for example, the people who are on the special booths, on particular booth to conduct the elections, when they are already deployed, when we will be conducting all the elections or the state legislative assembly election, the Lok Sabha election at the same point of time, that will actually help in saving the money of the state exchequer. Because the money that the Election Commission of India is spending, that has been authorized by the Parliament itself, and that money is from the taxes that me and you are paying, that is being paid by the citizens. So that will actually help in saving the state exchequer's money, and it will help in rationalizing the election expenditure. Also, it will lead to addressing the policy paralysis. Once the election is announced, the model code of conduct comes into force. So that leads to disruptions in the governance, that leads to disruptions in the policy making. But when we will have the elections at the same point of time, that will not create a large scale governance deficit, or that will not create an policy paralysis. Why? Because once elections are done for the next 5 years, until and unless there will be hung assemblies, there can be a 5-year proper governance, there can be a proper policy making without any disruptions. And then the increased voter participation. This has been one of the major issues. As per the data of the Election Commission of India, in 2019 general elections, the voter turnout was 67.4%. However, in the 2024 general elections, the 18th Lok Sabha which was elected, in that the electoral voter turnout was only 65.79%, which is much less than the 2019 voter turnout. And why is it the case? It is because of the frequent elections, that people feel a electoral fatigue, that time and again every year there are some or other elections are happening. So people does not feel that much interested in the electoral process. Moreover, let's suppose there is a daily wage worker or a construction site worker who belongs to Bihar or eastern Uttar Pradesh, and he works in one of the construction site in Delhi. Will he go for polling in the Lok Sabha elections and then again in the assembly elections, by jeopardizing his earnings, by jeopardizing his whatever the earnings or the daily wage he was getting? Answer is no, because he is something who is not on a payroll. He is something who is not on a proper employment. Whatever he is doing on a daily basis, he is getting according to that. And if he'll go for the polling, obviously he will not get the wages on the whatever the leaves that he or she is taking for the conduct of elections or for exercising his or her vote. And that is the reason people don't go to vote, and we see such low voter turnout. More than that, even in some of the metropolitan cities like in Bengaluru, we have seen a very low voter turnout. Why? Because of the urban apathy that we witness, that people don't feel interested in the electoral process. They have a feeling that my one vote will not create any difference in the electoral process. So whenever there will be one election at one point of time, on the same day we are having a Lok Sabha election and the state legislative assemblies election, people might be motivated, might be interested to exercise their vote, because by taking only one leave itself for a daily wage worker, or by going once at the polling booth, they may exercise their both votes for MPs elections as well as for choosing their MLAs. So this will also have the larger economic benefits. For example, the Kovind committee suggested that if we'll go for the simultaneous election, that may lead to 1.5% higher GDP growth rate. It may lead to an ease of doing business, improved ease of doing business. Why? Because of the less disruptions that we will face in policy making or in the governance. Also, it will lead to an improved election monitoring, because there are various electoral malpractices time and again which comes into the picture, and for this the Election Commission of India also launched one app, e-Vigil, where people can upload whatever the malpractices that they are witnessing. However, still it is a challenge, and that too when the digital infrastructure has improved a lot. That initially it was only limited to money, liquor, etc. But now it has taken various other facets. It has changed its form. For example, one of the major issue which was highlighted, that instead of a full-fledged advertisement in the newspapers, any particular information about any candidate was being reported as a news in the newspapers, and that to some extent was acting as the advertisement. So that was a kind of new form of advertisement which various candidates who were in the polls, they were resorting to. Also, the proponent says that the Law Commission of India in year 1999 in its 170th report also supported this idea of the one nation, one election. This Law Commission of India is neither a constitutional body nor it is created by any law of the parliament. So it is neither constitutional nor a statutory body. Rather, it has been created by a executive resolution and it acts as an advisory body to Ministry of Law and Justice. Also, this Parliamentary Standing Committee in 2015 also supported this One Nation, One Election. Also, this Ramnath Kovind Committee, which was created, they also got proper support from the Law Commission of India to frame the bill or to give proper feedback for the One Nation, One Election bill. Also, a report in 2017 by Niti Aayog also supported this idea of simultaneous elections. So this Niti Aayog, which was created on 1st January 2015, it completed its 10th year on 1st January 2025, and that is the reason Niti Aayog is one of the important topic for upcoming mains examination as well as for the next prelims examination. And this Niti Aayog is again neither a statutory body nor a constitutional body. It is again created by a executive resolution. And it follows a bottom to top approach. It tries to promote cooperative federalism, competitive federalism, that there are various, the states are getting represented in the Niti Aayog meetings. Then various indexes which are released by the Niti Aayog, for example, water stress index or the innovation index, etc., where states ranking are given. So states are motivated to improve on that index, and that promotes the competitive federalism. Also, it is not something, this simultaneous election is not new to India. There are various other countries which are following simultaneous elections without any difficulty. For example, South Africa, Sweden, Belgium, Germany, Indonesia, Philippines and Japan. All these are following simultaneous elections and they are doing it properly without any issue. But there are some issues with the One Nation, One Elections. Some of the critics says that it may create challenges for the regional parties. Because see, the national issues and the regional issues, or the national issues and the issues at the state levels, to some extent they are different. And that is the reason there has been various instances where at the same point of time when the elections are being conducted for the Lok Sabha and the state legislative assembly, two different parties are getting elected. A different party or a different person is from other party is getting elected from that seat, from that constituency for MP, whereas a different party, a different candidate belonging to a different party is being elected as an MLA. That shows that people have this much of awareness that the regional issues and the national issues are different, and that is the reason there are some regional parties which are created for a specific task. For example, JJM in Jharkhand was created for a separate state of Jharkhand itself. So in that case, this may create a challenge for the regional parties, that they may struggle to compete against the national parties and the national interest. For example, security or the sovereignty of India is a national issue, and that if the party which is at the national level, if that is doing very good to ensure the national security, this topic or this issue of national security may overtake various other regional issues. What are regional issues? Good road, proper water supply, proper electricity supply, and proper infrastructure building, road construction, etc. All these are regional issues. And the national issues might overtake the regional issues, and that is the reason it may create challenges for the regional parties. More than that, the national parties gets majority of the political funding from the various sources, and regional parties doesn't get that much of funding. With so much of resources being deployed by the national parties, these regional parties may find it very difficult to compete with these national parties, as well as it may create challenges for the political diversity. As of now, we have so many political parties, and that brings the diversity, that ensures that the people's opinions are being shaped, they are being represented. That might be undermined. Also, increased voter errors. People obviously have the awareness about the issues, but still there is a lack of proper civic sense, lack of proper electoral education that is required. I will tell you one instance. In one of the panchayat elections that was conducted in the Uttar Pradesh, I know in my polling booth, there were various people who, instead of using a stamp for choosing their candidates, they use their thumb impressions on the ballot papers. They forgot that they have to use a stamp that was kept on that table itself. That led to being their vote void, or their votes were wasted. So it may lead to an uninformed choices, and that may undermine the democratic spirit and the democracy. Also, threat to federalism. When the national agenda will be overpowering the regional agendas. It may overshadow the local issues. The local parties may not have a proper representation. Their voice may be neglected. Also, the logistical challenges, that whenever we will have to deploy so much of EVM machines, security forces, state machineries, district administrative machinery, it may create logistical challenge for the Election Commission of India to conduct and to oversee the elections properly. The cost of EVMs, new EVMs that the Election Commission of India may have to buy, the VVPATs machine, etc., that may create an additional burden, financial burden on the particular Election Commission of India. Also, the constitutional concerns, that it will require widespread amendment to the constitution like Article 83, 172. It will also require the amendments in Representation of People Act 1951, etc. So, to ensure that all of these amendments gets passed by the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, as well as it is being ratified by the state legislative assemblies, that is also a challenge, and we will have to see that whether it is being properly passed by all the institutions or not. Also, it may lead to reduced accountability. Whenever we have regular elections, whether it is national election or the this assembly elections, for example, if one party was chosen as in the national elections or the Lok Sabha elections, if that party is not performing very well for 1 year or 2 years, after 2 years, if the assembly election is going to happen, the people may cast their vote against the national party, that see, you are not doing good and that is the reason we are choosing a different party. And they may choose a different party or the candidates from different party or from opposition party to show their dissatisfaction with the governance, with the policy making, with the welfare measures which are being taken by the national party or the party that they have elected earlier. So what is the path ahead? What should be the way forward? First, as a proof of concept, on the pilot basis, one nation, one election can be conducted in some union territories or in some states where the elections are due with the Lok Sabha itself, to actually check what are the various issues that can come in the process of the simultaneous elections. And because we will have smaller electorates and simpler governance, it will be better to actually see and get feedback from this pilot basis of one nation, one election implementation. Also, we can have flexible election cycles for regional synchronization and then gradual alignment. Instead of going for one common poll for all the states and union territories as well as the Lok Sabha elections, there can be some regional grouping. For example, for the northern states, there can be one election date. For the northeastern states, there can be one time of elections. And once we implement this regional grouping or the regional synchronization, then we can go for a final one simultaneous elections for all the states and union territories. So first we can actually go for the regional synchronization to actually see what kind of logistical challenges are coming, and then we can go for a national simultaneous elections. Also, the digital electoral management system is the need of the hour, because this will provide a comprehensive platform, blockchain technology based, to actually see what are the various issues or to ensure a proper monitoring or proper oversight mechanism. There can be a proper centers, monitoring centers that can be created. For example, in Kumbh, which was created in Prayagraj, there was a big monitoring station where the AI based CCTV cameras monitoring was being done. All these can be deployed in the election also to actually check for malpractices, to check for any issue which is being created at any of the polling booths, etc. Also, we can strengthen the federal safeguards. For example, there is need for mandatory regional debates. There can be tailored funding caps. For example, 16th Finance Commission, which has been created under Dr. Arvind Pangadia, that will be recommending the devolution of funds to the states, the mechanism that should be followed for the devolution of funds. They will be also recommending the grants for the urban local bodies, etc. Now, there can be a proper tailored funding caps or a proper parameters needs to be followed to actually address the issues of the state assemblies or the states. More than that, the various the mechanisms which are given in the constitution or which the statutory measures to improve the cooperative federalism, they should be properly leveraged. For example, interstate council under article 263, the zonal councils which was created after 7th constitutional amendment act 1956, and the head of the zonal council is the Home Minister of India, and the recently Central Zonal Council meeting was conducted in Varanasi of Uttar Pradesh. So these kind of institutional measures, when they will be used properly, they will provide a platform, they will provide a voice to the states, and that can actually help in proper implementation of the simultaneous elections, because apprehensions of the state governments are being taken care of properly. Also, the grants that are given, the special the packages that are announced for the various states which are facing difficulty with regard to their revenue sources, there should be a proper objective criteria so that there is no allegation of politicization of all these fundings, etc., that are being given. Also, AI powered resource allocation that can actually provide the predictive analytics. Then decentralized election monitoring, the regional monitoring cells can be created to actually see the proper conduct of the elections. Also, citizen engagement with participatory democracy, midterm reviews of the elections which were conducted. The citizen-centric platforms like MyGov, etc., they should be properly utilized so that whatever the grievances, whatever the feedback is from the citizens, they gets shaped properly. Also, contingency planning, that fund, there should be a proper fund for handling unexpected elections that can come, especially after hung assemblies, that we do not face the governance deficit, that there is already a hung assembly and we are not ensuring a proper conduct of elections in due time. That needs to be addressed well. More than that, the most important thing is that there should be a proper stakeholder consultation from all the stakeholders involved, whether it is the civil society organization, the citizens, as well as the regional parties, so that whatever the apprehensions that they have, they are addressed well. This is a mains practice question that you people can write from this topic. Moving towards next topic, that is view India's gender gap report ranking as a warning. This is an editorial which has been written in today's The Hindu newspaper. So the context is a write-up in the backdrop of the global gender gap report highlights various dimensions of the gender gap in India and its implication across various socio-economic domains. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 1, issues related to women, role of women and women's organization. So this report, which was released by World Economic Forum, scores India to 0.644. And a score of a 0 shows a complete imparity. There is no parity at all between men and women. Whereas a score of 1 shows a proper parity. There is no discrimination between men and women. India has a score of 0.644. Also, the rank of India out of 148 countries is 131. And there are various dimensions which are kept into account, which are taken into account by this gender gap report. For example, the economic aspects, like the economic participation and the opportunity that are available to the women. Then the educational attainment, their gross enrollment ratio, etc. Health and survival with regard to the sex ratio, the various institutional measures, supports that are available to the women, hospital care, etc. And then the political empowerment, that how well women are being represented at various positions, what is their participation. So if we talk about the India's score in the economy, it is 0.407. In education, it is 0.971, and in health it is 0.954. Also in politics it is 0.245. But you will see an interesting observation that you can get from this page or from this picture is that despite being a low score in the political empowerment, that is just 0.245, India's rank is much better as compared to other indicators. India's rank is 69th despite being a poor score of 0.245. Whereas in health and survival, we have a score of 0.954. That is a much better score because one is complete parity. Because despite that, the rank is 143rd. Whereas in education, score is 0.971, but our rank is 110th. It is because of the fact that India's score being 0.245, that is very less, but it is much better as compared to other countries. in the situation of women with regard to the political empowerment is much worse as compared to, or that is worse in other countries, and that is the reason India has a better position. India had a woman Prime Minister of India, Srimati Indira Gandhi was there. Women presidents, Srimati Pratibha Patil, Srimati Draupadi Murmu ji is there, the current president of India. So India has ensured the political representation of women, and 33% reservation is again mandated by Nari Shakti Adhiniyam Act 2023. So because of all these measures, we have a improved rank, but again the score is not very good. Why? Because in the 17th Lok Sabha we had 78 women MPs representing women in the Lok Sabha. However, it declined to only 74 women MPs in 18th Lok Sabha. That constitute only 13.6%, which was 14.4% in 17th Lok Sabha. More than that, the inter-party democracy or the democracy within the party, the representation of women in the party, that is not very good. The representation of women at the decentralized level, that is also not very good, and that is the reason we have a poor score. But in other parts of world, the condition is worse, and that is the reason we have a better rank. What are other numbers that are revealing about the status of women? If you talk about the literacy of women, the male literacy is 80.9% as per the 2011 census, but the female literacy is just 64.6%. If you talk about the crime against women, 31,516 cases of rape were reported in 2022 as per the report of the National Crime Record Bureau NCRB. That means one case every 16 minutes of rape is being reported. That is the condition of the rapes that are happening. And when we talk about the status of or the incidents of crimes against women, total cases of crimes against women in 2020 was 3,71,503, which increased to 4,45,256 in year 2022. And the case reported every hour was 42 only, which increased to 51 with regard to the crimes against women. So the rate of crimes against women in India 2022 was 66.4%. This is the again data from NCRB report itself. That shows the discrimination, the exploitation, whether it is the sexual exploitation or the exploitation, harassment at workplace or at the normal places itself that women are subjected to. Apart from that, the accessibility of the public spaces. As per the National Family Health Survey for 2015-16, 54% of women have the freedom to visit market alone, and 50% can access healthcare facilities independently, and 48% can travel outside their community unaccompanied. At your homes also, if you will see that always it is generally recommended, or not at your homes, at your neighbors or in your society, in your village, in your town, you will generally witness that whenever sister or the female member of any family is going, I'm not saying it is about your family, rather general in society, whenever any female member is going outside, they are generally accompanied by either brother, or they are accompanied by father, husband, or anyone else. Generally male member accompanies them, and this data also highlights that. Also, the periodic labor force survey 23-24 that highlights that the labor force participation rate for women stands at 35.6% only. That indicates more than half of female population they remains outside the workforce, and it increased in the next PLFS to almost 41.2%. But again, another data that you should know, that female labor force participation rate in agriculture is near 60%. That shows the feminization of the agriculture, that male members are migrating to urban areas to get better jobs, to get better wages, whereas females are doing labor in agriculture. Generally, in the agriculture sector, the daily wage is less. For example, for the paddy transplantation, they get much less wages as compared to what they will be getting by doing any other work. So the feminization of agriculture, or the labor force participation rate in the agriculture sector of women, is much higher as compared to the general labor force participation rate. So the labor force participation rate in agriculture is much higher, but only 13% of women are owning the agricultural land as per Agri Census 2021-22. They are high participant in agriculture, but they are not being empowered by ensuring that they have ownership of agricultural land. That shows the pathetic condition of women in the agriculture sector or at a general level. Also, the women have a limited engagement with the public spaces, the parks or the recreational activities that are available. They have limited participation. That has been again highlighted by the National Family Health Survey. So what we have done, whatever the sectors or the dimensions that were taken by the gender gap report, we tried to at least give you some data related to those sectors. For the political empowerment, we have already given you data of the 17th and the 18th Lok Sabha. What are the reasons for this discrimination and the exploitation? The patriarchal norm, the inherent patriarchy that men are superior to women, the male dominance that is witnessed, and that comes from the socialization. If a child is born and he sees in his family or in her family that there is no discrimination that is happening in my family with regard to men members or women members, with regard to mother or father, that person will also socialize, that person will also be understanding that there should not be any discrimination. But when a person sees a new child or a newborn child sees that there is a widespread discrimination that is witnessed in the family itself. Altogether, starting from the toys, there is different toys for the females, there is different toys for the male members, there is different kind of dressing that is for the male members and the female members. Why is it so? And when that child is getting socialized in the family by seeing this discrimination, by seeing this patriarchy, that there is a discrimination that is happening in my family. My mother is cooking, my mother is doing work at homes, whereas my father is going outside for earning. So that child also gets socialized with regard to that discrimination and the patriarchal norms. That leads to further gender inequality, and that leads to power imbalance in the society, in the family, or at the other places like workplace. Also, the cultural stereotypes, that is the traditional roles, that women are only suitable for expressive roles like caring of the family, like roles nursing, receptionist, etc. Whereas men are compatible, men are suitable for instrumental roles, like they will be doing jobs in the factories, they will be representing in armed forces, police forces, etc. So this traditional roles or the gender stereotyping further leads to discrimination and the exploitation, and that we are witnessing in form of poor gender gap rank that we have witnessed in the World Economic Forum report. Also, that limits the opportunities that are given to the female, and that is witnessed in the glass ceiling and the glass cliff like phenomena, which we will see in the power dynamics also. And it also leads to objectification of the women. Despite facing some trauma, despite not having a good mood, all the receptionists who are sitting at the front desk, they will always have to greet people with a smiling face. The air hostess, they also have to greet people with the smile. They have to ensure that they are following all the norms with regard to the clothing and the representation, etc., that how they have to look. All that is being already decided. That leads to objectification of women. Also, the lack of awareness, that women are unfamiliar with their rights. For example, prevention of sexual harassment at workplace 2013 Act. Very less women are aware about that. Reporting procedures are complex. The police stations are not that gender sensitive. The legal options, the high cost that is involved, and again gender insensitiveness that is with regard to the advocates that are available. Also, the power dynamics, the hierarchical structures that are witnessed, fear of retaliation from the male members, from the companies, from the institutions, and the vulnerability that they may face in future if they are reporting any incident. Also, the glass ceiling that we were talking is an invisible barrier that limits the representation of women or growth of women in any hierarchy. They will not be moving beyond a particular position like CEOs, CFOs, Chief Operating Officers. They will not be getting these positions. Rather, they will be limited only to managerial positions, or at max they will reach to Vice President level or the Secretary level, which is not a position of power. Also, the economic dependence, that is the financial insecurity, job insecurity, and the limited choices that they have. And this has been also highlighted by the time use survey, which says that this time use survey which came in 2023, which says that women at least spend 7 hours 6 minutes in care economy, in giving care work like the rearing of child, bearing of child, or taking care of elderly members, etc. Whereas the male members only spends 2 hours 43 minutes in giving the care work, or they only spend 2 hours 43 minutes on the care work. When they do not have that much of time to actually participate in the economic domain, they will also not have the money, and that creates a dependence, that they will be dependent for money or for financial resources on their partners, and that this economic dependence further creates a issue that they will not be retaliating against any exploitation, gender violence, or the domestic violence that they may get subjected to, because they are financially not secure. They may face that tomorrow, they may face an issue of getting proper resources or even getting basic necessities if they are speaking against the domestic violence or the discrimination that they are facing at home. Also, the workplace culture, the hostile environment, harassment tolerance, impunity, and this generalization that of or this feeling of the society to some extent has accepted this discrimination, and that is the reason that it is also witnessed in the culture. Then the legal loopholes, weak enforcement, lack of accountability mechanisms, delayed justice, that whenever a woman is filing a case against any person, they don't get justice in a time-bound manner, that further demotivates other women members to come and report the issues. And the social stigma that is associated, the fear, shame, isolation, victim blaming, that it will be only the woman's issue, or the mistake will be from woman's side, that she was not wearing this kind of cloth, or she was wearing this kind of cloth, why she was outside in the night. All this process of victim blaming, where they are actually made the scapegoat, all this further creates a issue of discrimination and the exploitation. So why we actually need gender balanced society? So the moral imperative, we are living in a society, equality and fairness is the need of hour for all. Also, the economic growth with diverse perspective that will be coming, that will drive innovation and productivity. As per the McKinsey 2015, $770 billion GDP boost we can witness by closing the gender gap itself. Also, it can create a sustainable nations by growing evidence shows that corporations which are led by women are more focused on sustainability. For example, the founder of Sugar Cosmetics, founder of the MCure Pharmaceuticals, the founder of this Mama Earth, they are women, and that is the reason they are focusing on the sustainable development. For example, I have seen various reports that Mama Earth was planting various trees whenever any product was being bought by the people. Also, it leads to strengthening economies, that 10% more girls go to school, a country's GDP can increase by an average of 3%. And it will also help in reducing hunger, increasing productivity of economy. It will also benefit family, because the empowered woman will also lead to an empowered families, because they will be transferring all the knowledge, all the resources that they have to their child also. Also, it will lead to improve health, because as per National Family Health Survey, the sex ratio at birth is 9:9 itself. And we have a working age population of 63%. And when we have such distorted sex ratio, it means that the working age population is also less, and that is the reason labor force participation rate is less. And when women are not participating, their ideas, their innovation will not be part of economy, and economy will be subjected to loss because of non-participation of women. Also, the social progress, that it will help in challenging the gender stereotypes, and it will help in promoting equality. It will also help in achieving the ideas of the constitutional makers, that they wanted to create the social justice. There should not be any discrimination based on religion, race, caste or place of birth, which has been highlighted by the fundamental rights also. Also, it will lead to talent utilization, that the maximum potential of all employees will be utilized very well. Also, it will create a positive workplace culture which will have respect, inclusivity and collaboration. There should be proper support by the male members for the female members, there should not be any there will not be any discrimination. Also the legal compliance, that it will lead to adherence to anti-discrimination laws and regulations. There will be less violations, there will be less reporting of cases happening, and this may also deburden the judiciary, which is facing an issue of more than 5 crore cases pending in the all the levels of the judiciary as per the recent data from National Judicial Data Grid. However, government has taken various initiatives to address all these issues. For example, sexual harassment of women at workplace 2018, which establishes internal committee to investigate and address the harassment complaints. She Box was also launched by the government, where women can submit their complaints. Also, this sexual harassment electronic box C, it will provide here the women can register their complaints related to sexual harassments at workplaces through this website. Speedier remedy to women that who are facing harassment. Also, complainant can monitor the progress of inquiry which are conducted by the internal complaint committee, which has been mandated by this sexual harassment of women at workplace Act 2013. Then the Beti Bachao Beti Padhao scheme, which was a flagship scheme of Government of India, which aims to prevent the gender-based biased sex selection that ensures the survival, protection and education of the girl child. If you want to draw a diagram in the mains examination with regard to the discrimination and the exploitation that women faces, you can draw a diagram starting from the female feticide and then the female infanticide, then the discrimination that a female child faces with regard to the nutritional availability that they have, then the enrollment ratio, that less in enrollment ratio or not 100% enrollment ratio in the primary education, again the exploitation or the discrimination that they face at the schools, then at the secondary level, then at the higher educational level. For example, in the STEM contribution, women's contribution is only 14%, and then the discrimination, exploitation or the violence that they faces in the public domains, at the workplace, etc. So just try to trace a journey of women from the fetus ultimately to a old age woman, that the issues that the old age women are facing. So in this way you can show a flow chart, and based on that flow chart you can show the various issues that are being faced by women at various stages of their life, starting from taking birth and then up till death, and that may differentiate your copy from other people. Then the Nirbhaya Fund, which supports the initiative for the safety and security of women, setting up an emergency response system and improving public infrastructure. Then Ujjwala, which is a scheme for prevention of trafficking and rescue, rehabilitation, reintegration of victims of trafficking and commercial sexual exploitation. Then this Saksham Bitiya initiative of Niti Aayog, which was launched. National Education Policy 2020, which provides gender inclusion fund to ensure that the representation of women can be increased across various socio-economic domains, and also it will be utilized for supporting the STEM education. For example, this SARB scheme, again this tries to support the women's participation in the STEM. Swadhar Greh, which provides short-term stay to the women who are facing issues, who are facing difficult circumstances. Then the Nari Shakti Puraskar, which tries to honor the various initiatives or various measures or the various measures that were taken for the improvement of the women's position. Also Mahila Shakti Kendras, which provides the counseling services, vocational training, and One Stop Center scheme, which provides the comprehensive services to women who are affected by violence, including the medical aid, legal assistance, counseling and shelter. Also Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana, Mahila Samman saving certificates, the Balika Samriddhi Yojana, and then CBSE merit scheme for the single girl child, national scheme for incentives to girls for secondary education. Apart from that, the Poshan Abhiyan, the Saksham Anganwadi scheme, paid maternity leave, then the PCPNDT Act, Triple Talaq, Ujjwala scheme, and then Mission Indradhanush to ensure the proper immunization of women, because as per the NFHS 5, more than 57% of women are anemic, and when they are facing anemia or they are suffering from anemia, that creates the difficult circumstances for working, that creates difficult circumstances for their learning, for improving their cognitive abilities, and that also creates issues for the pregnancies, and many of women are also suffering from PCOD, PCOS, and because of lack of awareness, because of lack of support, because of lack of proper recognition of these issues, the women are further subjected to the other difficult circumstances, other diseases. What should be done? What should be the way forward? There is need for an integrated policy actions, that there should not be a separate policy for economy, there should not be a separate policy for the health and education. They should be taken in account in a proper comprehensive manner. There should not be a siloed approach that should be followed for an overall comprehensive development. Also, there is need for bridging the care gap, like elderly care, child care, creche facilities can be provided, etc. Some digital technologies can be used for monitoring of the elderly's health, etc. Because when women will be free from the care work, obviously they will be participant in the overall economy. Also, we need to invest in the care infrastructure, and we also need to publicly recognize and role models. For example, the Chandrayaan mission, the mission director was a woman, and she is one of the role models for the other women to come and be the participant in the STEM sector. So this will help in dismantling the stereotypes, and this will also inspire the next generation. Also, we need to strengthen the legal framework. For this, we need to raise the awareness, improve the enforcement of laws, and we also need to promote the workplace equality by challenging the harmful stereotypes. Also, we need to invest in training and education, create safe and inclusive work environment, and we also need to foster a culture of respect that should come from the socialization process, that a child should learn respecting the females or the other genders from family itself. When he is learning, she is learning from the family, she will also or he will also take this for his or her whole life, and that will actually help in creating an inclusive and sustainable environment and society. These are two main practice questions from this topic, and these are two main PYQs from this topic, and this is a main practice question that you people can write from this topic. In our simplified section, first topic is what Maharashtra's urban Maoism bill says. So this particular topic relates with your GS paper 2, Executive, Indian Constitution, Fundamental Rights, Judiciary, and this is also related to your GS paper 3, challenges posed by left-wing extremism or challenges of internal security, etc. And this has appeared in today's Indian Express, page number 14. So this left-wing extremism, or the people who resort to this left-wing extremism, they are believers in the principles of Mao, and they wants to overthrow the government, and they wants to establish a communist state, and they sees the government as oppressive and exploitative, which is serving only the interest of ruling elites. There is a separate division which has been made under the Ministry of Home Affairs. Ministry of Home Affairs actually looks up to the left-wing extremism. The various CAPFs, etc. are deployed in these districts which are impacted by the left-wing extremism, which is generally known as Red Corridor, and it has shrinked to a larger extent in last few years. From 2010 to 2022, we have seen a 77% decline in the violence related to the Naxalism. Also, to address this Maoism or the Naxalism, which has taken a new form of urban Naxals, where various people who are based in urban areas, they are providing support in form of material, in form of the financing, etc., or in form of ideology from the by being based in urban areas itself. To address that, this Maharashtra Special Public Security Bill that seeks to provide for an effective prevention of certain unlawful activities of left-wing extremism organizations or similar organizations was passed by the State Assembly by a voice note itself. There are various other measures by which it can be passed. For example, people can use the buttons which are kept in front of them. And it has been widely debated since it was introduced way back in the monsoon session of the state legislature last year itself, when the current chief minister was the deputy CM. And the bill will now be introduced in the legislative council, and if it is passed by the legislative council, it will get the assent of the governor, and then it can become the act. Also, various objects and the reasons which are given by the bill, it says that menace of Naxalism is not only limited to remote areas of the Naxal affected state, but its presence is increasing in urban areas also through the Naxal front organizations. And the frontal organizations provide logistics and safe refuge to armed Naxal cadres and existing laws are ineffective and inadequate to tackle this menace of Naxalism, and that is the reason this bill is being presented. And there are special laws in various other states like Chhattisgarh, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh to actually address this issue of LWE. Also, the provisions are any organization as an unlawful organization. It prescribes the 4 offences for which individual can be punished. For example, for being a member of an unlawful organization, when not a member, for raising funds for an unlawful organization, for managing or assisting in managing an unlawful organization, or for committing any unlawful activity. And the term says that any suspect, if someone is there is suspicion that someone is involved, then also he may be subjected to a jail term of 2 years to 7 years, along with fines ranging from 2 lakhs to 5 lakhs. And this activity, the committing and unlawful activities, carries the toughest punishment, imprisonment of 7 years and fine up to 5 lakh. And these offences are cognizable, which means that there is no need of any warrant for arresting any suspect, and they are also non-bailable. And bill defines the unlawful activities as any action taken by an individual or organization, whether by committing an act or by words either spoken or written, or by sign or by visible representation or otherwise, which constitute a danger or menace to public order, peace, tranquility, or interferes with the maintenance of public order, or interferes with the administration of law, or established institutions or personal, or its design to overawe by criminal force or show criminal force to any public servant. So this public order, maintenance of public order, peace, tranquility, these are subjective terms, and that is the reason some critics says that this may be a high-handed law. Also, indulging in propagating acts of violence, vandalism, or acts generating fear and apprehensions in the public, encouraging or preaching disobedience to established law, its institution, collecting money or goods to carry out any of these unlawful activities are also included under this. Also, the bill, when it was introduced in the monsoon session, at that point of time, because a day after the bill was tabled, the assembly was prorogued and the bill was not passed, and that is the reason it was lapsed. Also, you people tell me in the comment box what is the difference between the prorogation and the dissolution, and who announces both these measures. Also, there were various suggestions which were made by the Joint Select Committee. First of all, it says that it was regarding the long title and the preamble of the bill. It says that unlawful activities of left-wing extremist organization or similar organization, this can be incorporated. Also, there is a board which will be established, and that the committee suggests that the board shall consist of chairperson who has been a judge of High Court, and 2 members of which one shall be retired judge, and other shall be the government pleader of High Court appointed by the state government. Whereas the bill was of the opinion that advisory board will consist only of 3 persons who have been qualified to be appointed as judge of High Court. And again, the third amendment says that instead of acts defined under the bill being investigated by the police officers not below rank of sub-inspector, it should be investigated by the person not below the rank of DSP or Deputy Superintendent of Police. These are some recommendations which has been made by the Joint Select Committee. Also, if you look into the shrinking of the red corridors or the districts which are affected by the left-wing extremism, it was in 2013 it was 182 districts, which is only 18 districts in 2025. Also, in April 25, it was 38 districts. And government and the Ministry of Home Affairs has made a target. Minister of Home Affairs has said that they will be eliminating the left-wing extremism by 2026. And recently, few months back, few big members, few leaders of the Maoism in India were also killed by the security forces. Next topic is Kailash Mansarovar Yatra resumes after 5-year history of a storied pilgrimage. This is related to your GS paper 1, Indian Heritage and Culture, and this is related to Indian Express page number 16. So, because of the COVID-19 restrictions and the issues going on between India and China at LAC, since last 5 years, the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra was suspended. And that is the reason, after 5 years, Ministry of External Affairs has chosen 750 pilgrimage who would be making the storied pilgrimage in the 5 batches of 50 yatri. They will be crossing the Tibet through the Lipulekh Pass in Uttarakhand, and 10 batches of 50 pilgrimages will make longer but relatively easier journey through the Nathula Pass. So one journey is through this Lipulekh Pass, and second journey is through this Nathula Pass across Sikkim. This journey from Lipulekh Pass involves lot of trekking, and that is the reason this is much difficult as compared to this journey of Nathula, which is to some extent easier, but that is a longer journey. Also, with an elevation of 6,638 meter, Mount Kailash is located in Nagarai prefecture of the Tibet Autonomous Region near the tri-junction of India, Tibet and Nepal. This is the location, and this is home of the Hindu god Shiva. For Jains, it is where their first leader was enlightened. Who was the first Tirthankar? You people tell me in the comment box. For Buddhists, the navel of universe, and for adherents of Bon or the abode of sky, goddess Sipaimin or the Alice Abina wrote in her award-winning book Empires of Indus the story of river. So this is not limited to any one religion, Hindu, but this Mount Kailash has been very important for various other religions also. Also, 4 major rivers also consist of watershed area near this. Also, after 1904, when the Tibet officially opened up to British subjects, people were visiting these areas, and then in 1906, there were also the mention in the book Western Tibet and the British Borderlands about the sacred mountain, which had a stunning photograph of Kailash on its cover. So again, the people were representing. However, after this in 1930, over years, Kailash Mansarovar pilgrimage grew in popularity. In 1930, some 730 Indian pilgrims had reportedly made the journey to the holy mountain. Number would remain in hundreds till the Chinese annexation of Tibet in year 1950, following which Kailash was first closed to Europeans in 1951 and then to Indians in 1959. However, due to efforts of Shri Subramaniam Swamy, who was an MP from Janata Party in 1981, with Mr. Deng Xiaoping, the arrangements were finalized during the visit to India by Chinese Foreign Minister about the opening of the space so that pilgrims of India can visit the Kailash Mansarovar. Also, the pilgrims typically travel to an circumambulate Mansarovar, a 90-kilometer walk that takes 3 to 5 days to complete. Also, initially they are stationed at various places so that they can get acclimatized to high altitude before reaching Tibet, because the oxygen levels are very less, the weather is not very good, so people find it difficult to sustain at those places, and that may lead to sickness, or the people's health can deteriorate in those environment, and that is the reason they are being given proper time so that they can get accustomed to all those situations. On the Nathula Pass, which first opened in 2015, the journey is even easier. Pilgrims travel the entire 1500 km from Nathula to Mansarovar by car or bus. So this is a general representation of various places, Rakastal and then Yamadwar, etc. You people can keep in mind. I think UPSC will not go into this much of detail, and this area starting from the Nathula Pass can be accessed with the help of car and bus also, and this is again the detailed route from Delhi up till Kailash Mansarovar, right? So this you can keep a brief idea about the various places and their locations. Moving towards the next topic, that is net direct tax collections falls 1.3% during April 1 to July 10, and this is related to your GS paper 3 mobilization of resources, and this has appeared in today's Indian Express page number 17. So India's government's net direct collections fell 1.3% year on year to rupees 5.6 crore during April 1 to July 10 period, and the government said in a statement on Friday. Also, direct tax are paid entirely by the taxpayer. Indirect taxpayer is ultimately paid by the end consumer of goods and services. For example, GST is an example of indirect tax. Income tax, corporation tax is an example of direct tax. The burden of taxes cannot be shifted, whereas the burden of taxes can be shifted to the ultimate consumer. When you are paying GST in hotel or the restaurant, ultimately that GST will be submitted by the hotel, but they have shifted that burden to the people who are dining in that restaurant. And direct tax can actually help in reducing the inflation, whereas the indirect tax can enhances the inflation because it adds to the cost of the value. Also, tax evasion is possible in the direct tax when people are not reporting their earnings, whereas in the indirect tax they cannot be evaded as they are charged on goods and services. Also, high administrative costs are involved in direct tax, whereas lesser administrative cost involved in the indirect taxes, because government will have to ensure a proper watch on the direct tax collection, whether people are reporting their money, where people are reporting their taxes or not. Direct tax is progressive, whereas indirect tax is regressive. After the income for a year is earned or valuation of assets is determined on the valuation date, at the time of sale or purchase of the rendering of the services, indirect tax is levied. Also, what is the difference between impact, incidence and shifting of taxes? Impact of tax means initial burden, who is paying that is paid by the person on whom the tax is imposed. And then the tax incidence means the final burden, the person who is actually borne by the ultimate payment of the taxes, means the tax borne by the person who ultimately pays the taxes. Tax shifting means transfer of tax burden from one person to another, means the impact is the tax is levied, means on hotel the tax impact is there, then they are shifting, that is transfer of burden happening of the taxes. Incidence means the final payer, the people who are dining in the particular restaurant, means tax burden can be shifted but tax incident cannot be shifted, because the incidence means the ultimate payment is being done by the person. Also, impact can be shifted whereas incident cannot. When we talk about this data, from where actually the rupee comes, which I have taken from the budget 25-26 document. Income tax constitute 22% to the state's revenue, government's revenue. Then the union and excise duty constitute 5%, GST and other taxes 18%, corporation tax 17%, 4% customs, and then we have the non-tax receipts 9%, borrowing and other liabilities 24%, 1% non-debt capital receipts, the grants etc. can come under this. Also, the disinvestment etc. will also come under the this non-debt creating capital receipts. Also, you have to understand that the direct tax contributes more to the Indian government as compared to the non-direct taxes. Next topic is that Maratha fort systems get the UNESCO heritage tag. This is related to your GS paper 1, Indian heritage sites in ancient Indian history, temple architecture, Indian architecture, and this is related to your the Hindu page number 12. So the Maratha military landscapes, which are representing the extraordinary fortification and military systems envisaged by the Maratha rulers, that was on Friday inscribed on the coveted UNESCO World Heritage List, and decision was taken on the 47th sessions of World Heritage Committee that is being held in Paris. The 12 components of this Maratha military landscapes are Salher Fort, Shivneri Fort, Lohgarh Fort, Khanderi Fort, Raigad, Rajgarh, Pratapgarh, and then Suvarnadurg, Panhala Fort, Vijayadurg and Sindhudurg in Maharashtra, and Jinji Fort in Tamil Nadu. All that has been kept under the UNESCO World Heritage Site. So before this, the total World Heritage Sites in 2024 up till 2024 was 43, and in the tentative list it was 62. Whenever a particular place is kept under the tentative list and when they are following certain requirements, then they can be included in the final World Heritage Sites after the decision is being made by the World Heritage Committee, who meets in a meeting. Also, this is a general list of the various World Heritage Sites, UNESCO World Heritage Sites in India, which was updated till 24. There were various other sites which were included. So this is an old map of the World Heritage Site. Why it is important? Because there was a question in prelims 2024 with regard to the properties which are included in World Heritage List, which is released by the UNESCO, and these were well reported in the newspapers, in the Hindu newspaper, and that is the reason this was one of the questions in the prelims 2024 paper. You people tell me the answer of this question in the comment box. Next topic is Astra BVR or Beyond Visual Range Missile Test that was fired off Odisha coast. This is related to your GS paper 3 defense, and this has appeared in today's Indian Express page number 8. So India on Friday successfully test fired Astra Beyond Range air-to-air missile, which was launched by Su-30 Mk1 aircraft off the coast of Odisha, and which demonstrate India's indigenous defense capabilities. Missile has a range of exceeding 100 km and it is equipped with state-of-art guidance and navigation system. Especially it can be very fruitful in air-to-air combat between the fighter aircrafts. The DRDO and the Indian Air Force successfully conducted the flight test of indigenous beyond visual range air-to-air missile Astra, which is equipped with indigenous radio frequency seeker with Su-30 Mk1 platform, and it was tested integrated test range Chandipur, which is located in Odisha. And there was this question in prelims 2017 that was related to Chandipur itself, where seawater recedes from the shoreline by few kilometers every day, generally twice a day. And this information was also on this Kit Kat chocolate. And if you are a person who is not only eating chocolate, rather you are also reading the content which is written on the wrapper. It is not only limited to any information which can be useful for your UPSC examination. The other information, the ingredients which are there in that chocolate, the nutritional information, expiry date, etc., that can be highly useful for your health as well as for your examination. So if you are a person who is observing your surrounding, not just reading the books, newspapers, you can get some questions correct in the examination. So this was the question. The correct answer was Chandipur. Then there are some other key missile systems in India's arsenal, like BrahMos supersonic cruise missile, whose range is 290 to 450 km, which was used in Operation Sindoor. It is multi-platform system. It can be launched from surface, air, as well as it can be used by Navy, land, sea and air launched. It has precision targeting with supersonic velocity. You'll see various pictures that came. The sites, the terrorist sites which were targeted, the precision attack was there. It directly penetrated the ceiling of those sites itself. And then we have the Prithvi missile. Prithvi 1 and 2, they are tactical ballistic systems, 150 and 30 km respective range. They are short range delivery with conventional and nuclear capabilities. Then we have the Prithvi missile systems again. They are used in the battlefields. They have a range of 150 to 350 km. Shore missile, which is hypersonic ballistic missile. It have a K series, which is a submarine launched ballistic missiles. Then Nag, which is an anti-tank guided missile that implements the fire and forget missile capabilities, or based on fire and forget principles. And then Pralay, which is short range ballistic missile. Again, it is high precision navigation rapid deployment. It is quick response missile with a range of 150 to 500 km. Then we have the Pinaka multi-barrel rocket system, which is a type of artillery rocket system. A range is up to 75 km. And then we have the Dhanush missile system, which have an approximate capabilities of 350 km and naval strike capabilities is there. And then we have the Akash air defense system, which was again used when the Pakistan retaliated after the Operation Sindoor. So these indigenous systems ensures that India have a proper offensive as well as the defensive capabilities. That is all from today's analyst. Thank you very much. All the very best. Keep studying.